I want to bring in House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Ms. Speaker, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you. I wish it were under other circumstances.
Yeah, we all do. We all do.
Yes.
Well,
the numbers are staggering, aren't they?
They're
250,000 cases, 6,000 deaths. So sad.
But it's a common enemy. You united with both sides. I thought that was a monumental piece of legislation.
It was.
And I just think that what's happened is that while it is big, and I know the Secretary of Mnuchin wants it to play out, and I think it's going to work for a while, if these people are right, these people who are supposed to be seers and say it's 18 months, you and I both know that there will be millions of people who are unemployed. What do you suggest we should do? Because that's just too many for this great nation.
Well, it is, and that was predicated on how long it takes to get a vaccine. We have some of the best minds in the country working 24/7, all hands on deck to find a cure or something that can maintain a healthier life until there is a vaccine and the rest. So we can't accept that as an answer. But I do think that we've had 3 bills that have been bipartisan. I think right now we need a 4th bipartisan bill. And I think the bill could be very much like the bill we just passed. I don't think that $350 is enough for small business, and I don't think that 8 weeks is enough of a time to make a judgment about the viability of the business and how long they keep on their employers. So I'd like to go right back and say, let's look at that bill. Let's update it for some other things that we need. And again, put money in the pockets of the American people. Another direct payment, extending. We had unemployment at 6 months in our bill. It's 4. Let's take it to 6 for the unemployment so that people have that confidence. Hopefully they don't need it, but they have that confidence. And again, the small business piece, very, very essential. But when these businesses say they survive, they meet the criteria of keeping their employees on, they pay the rent, the utilities and the rest, and then their loan is forgiven, they still need customers. They still need customers. So that's why I think while I'm very much in favor of doing some of the things that we need to do to meet the needs, clean water, more broadband and the rest of that may have to be for a bill beyond this. Right now, I think that we have a good model. It was bipartisan. It was signed by the president, but it's not enough. And again, money in the pockets of America's working families.
All right,
to remove all doubt that they will have at least some resources. We are a consumer society, so let's have them have the resources to consume.
All right, Madam Speaker, you know me outside. You know I'm a constructive person who wants to get it right and be positive. How about this? We do something that would be rather remarkable, but would be with what Dr. Fauci wants, whom I think is a person who's respected from both sides. We do a $1 trillion, 30-year bond, safe and sound. I got even the acronym there, SAS. And what we do is we pay people to stay home for 1 month. If we're going to get demand, we got to do what Dr. Fauci says. We pay them to stay home, even if we pay them in script. And if they go out, we punch a hole, they don't get the same amount of money. We give them mortgage relief, we give them rent relief, and we give them health care relief. We just do it and put it in their pockets and get this country moving, because we will solve this pandemic by keeping people at home.
Well, you know that other countries some other countries are doing just that. But the model that we had in that bill was to, again, keep people employed, whether it was in the airline industry, whether it was in small businesses and the rest, keep people on the payroll in order for you to get your loan forgiven. So that it's a path to that. I do hope that but we do need to have more money for state and municipal governments. They're bearing a big price. Hospitals, they're bearing a big price. We just did a down payment for all of that. I would hope that the Fed would use its capabilities, which are now enhanced by our legislation, to ensure that the state and local governments have assistance. They don't need really any more debt. But there has to be a way for them to be helped by our monetary policy as well as our fiscal policy, as we do in our legislation. But I just really think, okay, we have a model. Again, it means people will stay home, and that's the best way to contain this. I do think we have we should have done more right now to protect our workers. And that's something that I wish I know that Dr. Fauci probably speaks about, but I want that to be a louder voice so that the president is not just pitting one state or municipality against the next to get the personal protective equipment that people need so that they can, as they try to save a life, protect their own lives, as well as the ventilators and the rest needed to help people. Because that, the economy is going to be helped by how we reduce the plague. And the plague, of course, needs a cure, a vaccine, and the rest of that. But in the meantime, we've got to minimize the possible deaths. I don't accept that number. I think we just have to do more to do that. And I think that that's good for the livelihood of the American people as well as their lives. But again, money in the pockets of our consumers. Let's just go back with the same bill with some additions that we know we need in terms of pensions and health care costs and District of Columbia, OSHA to protect our workers, a list that goes on of some things that are just kicked down the road from before, but where we can find agreement and be ready to do that. We did three bills. March 4th was one, the 14th another, and the president signed a bill on March 28th complete in just that short period of time. We don't need a long time to figure out what we need to do next. We know, and we have a model.
I know that you are caring about these workers who are on the firing line. It is a tragedy what's happening. Should we not bring back industries that we've outsourced? We've outsourced so much of our health care. Shouldn't we make these drug companies say, listen, you want to get Medicare, you want to get paid by the VA, you start making this stuff here. It's too important. The PPE people, you want to be able to be part of the health society, you make this stuff here, ventilators here. Isn't it time to tell these companies, you bring that employment back here? We are not going to let you continue to outsource and then make it so that we don't even get, our workers don't get the help they need.
Well, it's not only for our workers, it's for our health care. Right now, we're at a very serious disadvantage because much of the supply chain that we need to make the drugs is really in other countries, even companies that are American companies or just global companies. They're not all American companies, but there isn't enough that is made here. And so now when we have a global threat, those countries are saying, I'm keeping these drugs here, and we are up the creek. This is a very big issue, and we've been talking about it for a long time. Congresswoman Anna Eshoo of California is the chair of the Health Subcommittee of Energy and Commerce, and she's been on this case for a long time. She really does think there should be a commission to address this issue about how America maintains its independent, when I say independence, its capability to produce drugs for use here or export it where needed, but not to be left up the creek because China or India has the supply side of all of this, in addition to, in some cases, making the drugs themselves. Some of it goes from India to Germany.
Right.
You know the global economy and how there's value added. But we have to be more into that loop, not only from the job side, but from the health security side.
Yeah,
and
sadly,
that's something.
I think that the plagues are not, I like that word plague because it really is front and center about who the common enemy is for Democrats and Republicans. You know, one of the things that I think you care passionately about, I know you like small business, Representative Velasquez, who's in our district, who cares more about small business than anyone I've ever heard, is a genius.
Yeah,
She's a genius about small business. I am sure she is worried, as you have to be, that when we come out on the other side, that we'll have just Costco, Walmart, and Amazon. And we'll have McDonald's, Chipotle, and a player to be named later. How do we make it so that we are not a country that just has those guys and no small businesses against them? Now, I know from Secretary Mnuchin that there have been a lot of $400 million already delved out, and it's only 930, but we can't have that, right? We can't have it just be those big box stores.
Well, we can't have that, and small business, of course, is the lifeblood of America's economy, where jobs are created and wealth is created as well. And it is someplace where the greatest growth is coming from women and minority-owned businesses, and that's part of the vitality of our economy. So we cannot come down to being reduced to just a few large companies. But that you're right to praise Congresswoman Velasquez. She's been the chair of this committee. Now, for the second time, she's been on the committee a long time. She's been a champion for small business because it is, again, so important to our economy and into the lives of the American people, a sense of community. And that is an economic as well as a personal success for those who are involved in it. I don't think there's anything more ambitious or optimistic that someone can do than to start a small business. Maybe get married, but that, you probably have weighed the equities there. But in a small business, it's a risk, it's entrepreneurial, people take a chance on that. It's so exciting, and innovation comes from that and the rest, and yet we cannot be reduced to a few big shops, big stores. But again, these are decisions, and people have to recognize, as you do, and Nydia does, that these are decisions. It's just an evolution of something. It's a decision to make sure people understand how our economy works, and that consumers are the lifeblood of it all, really, consumers and small businesses. And when they have money in their pockets to consume, that is the best way to grow the economy. And again, that's what we're going to do, money in the pockets of people. Longer period for unemployment insurance so people have that confidence. The PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, let's have that for longer than 8 weeks. Direct mailing. I said to the secretary, please let's just transfer these direct payments electronically. Let's not wait until we can get some kind of a fancy mailer to get it out, because that's only going to delay it. And right now, people are have a hope that something is coming. Let's not undermine the enthusiasm they may have for that and the confidence they have that when we say something, that we're going to do it. So I do think that I propose to the administration, to the Republicans, let's do what we just agreed to, except, again, make it more current to again, understand that the business may be open in 8 weeks or 16 weeks, but if they don't have customers, they were just where they were before.
We don't have the demand, but that is because of our common enemy, the plague. And I think a lot of us are so thrilled to see you and Secretary Mnuchin work so well together. That was just a breakthrough. Let me ask you something. Should we just put something out there? We wanted to do that $1 trillion bond, a 30-year. We could use 2%. It would be great. It would be an American war bond against the plague. But would we ever consider doing force majeure on mortgage debt, on how much you pay in your mortgage, on rent? How about force majeure? These healthcare companies, they're charging these small business people $6,000 a month. You hear the horror stories. Yeah. How do we make it so that those are either put in abeyance or the government helps? Because that's what's going to cause individual bankruptcies. And you and I don't want that.
Right. We do have in this bill some mortgage forbearance, not enough in my view, but some. And we also have that you cannot evict people for a period of time. Not enough, in my view. But the larger issue, my city of San Francisco takes from some heat because it comes down on the side of the small business so often about how people shouldn't be evicted and the rest when the economy is not everything we want it to be. And that's for sure now. But this, let me just say, any discussion we may have had about any of these subjects in the past is completely realigned now. We have to make sure that, again, as you keep saying, we're all in this together. How do we make solutions that recognize we're a free market economy, that we don't begrudge anyone their success? However, we don't want it at the exploitation of anyone else either. And again, whether we're talking about, again, our city is a poster child for how obscene the rents are, almost immoral in terms of that. And so it's very hard to succeed. But in any event, we have new technologies, we have new realities, and we have to make decisions that recognize how we lift everyone up, not just some.
Right. Now, one last question. There's an institution in this country that is revered, and that is the military. They have 125,000 medical professionals. Why do we not have, maybe it's just because we're a little bit older, you and me, MASH units all over the country? Why isn't the Fifth Army stationed throughout the U.S.? Why don't we use our unbelievable military to help the just besieged and beleaguered healthcare people. They're ready, they're willing, but they got to be asked.
Well, again, that's a question for the executive branch, but I will say this. I've seen them in operation all over the world in time of disaster and the rest, and aftermaths of war, migrations and the rest, and they are absolutely superb. We think of them only as a defense function, which is, of course, their important purpose, but they also are great in doing other things. Of the people that were, say, they thought they were retired, that the president may call up, I guess he has called them up, about 11,000 of them are medical professionals, and they may be drawn upon in the need for more healthcare providers. In terms of the Army Corps of Engineers, they're essential as to how we go forward now in that vein. But again, the the National Guard, the Reserve, and all the rest, they're being helpful other places as well. Perhaps we can do more, but that would be up to the Commander-in-Chief.
Well, Madam Speaker, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you. I can't represent the country, obviously, I'm just a guy on TV, but it was fabulous that you guys got together and didn't fight, and you had all the phone calls, and we know who the enemy is, Madam Speaker, and it's COVID-19.
But we do have our differences. As their bill was a corporate trickle-down bill. We turned it jiu-jitsu. We turned it upside down to a workers first, bubble up. Right. But then, obviously, the need was great, and we weighed the equities, and we made some compromises and did the job. Now let's do it again.
Absolutely. Let's crush this thing. Let's just crush it.